All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to DFS Army's tournament strategy show, where we go through this slate, we game plan, we tell you guys we're going to be high on, guys we're going to be low on, and really just try to make sure everyone's ready to just get prepared for the slate. Of course, when it comes to NBA DFS, you have to pay attention to the news. A lot of craziness happens. We saw that yesterday. Yesterday wasn't my best slate by a long shot. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, no. Last night was definitely weird. We were just talking about it before the show and seeing the winning lineup. It's just a lineup that you kind of laugh at and kind of wipe your hands clean and move on. So
Yeah. For me, it's one of the first time this season, but I'm sure we'll have a few more. That where I'm just kind of like burn the tape. No need to go back and review it. We'll continue to move on. So we have a large slate on deck today. I'm ready to kind of bounce back strong, and I like this slate. Is that crazy to say? Like,
no, I'm liking it too.
yeah, we have some interesting news. So we'll jump into it. We'll go to this first game. We have the Miami Heat against the Charlotte Hornets. For the Heat, it looks like they're going to be relatively healthy. Josh Richardson is probable. Caleb Martin's out. Tyler Hero's been out for a while. We've seen Highsmith move into the starting lineup. How are you liking the Heat tonight?
Um, the main guy who's sticking out for me is Bam. He is 9K, but he's been playing really well lately. And we talk about bigs against Charlotte all the time, so I'll be fine to playing him a good chunk of him tonight. Um, Butler, I'm always on the fence what I want to do with him.
Mhm.
He hasn't really shown that upside that we've seen in the past before. So I'm probably not going to be too high on him tonight, but I look at Charlotte in a matchup and how bad they are defensively, and 8,600 for Butler is still pretty decent. So I wouldn't mind a small shot, maybe like 5% shot on him. And then Lowry, I feel like is worth mentioning just because he should play a ton and is at a decent price tag.
Mhm.
For this kind of slate as like a line filler, but never a guy I'm really too excited to fit in. But like I said, Charlotte's a soft matchup, so it wouldn't be surprising to me if he did well in this matchup. Outside of those three guys, probably not getting to anybody else. To be honest, everybody else is kind of priced up a bit. So
Yeah. I agree with your read here. Twin TV, Thomas Dye. Good to see everyone in here. Zolo, the crew's back together. Yeah, agreed. Good to have you back, Brandon. I know you'll be back on Thursday too. And you'll be on the pre-lock show all week.
yeah,
Uh, One thing I'll mention when it comes to the Miami Heat. Uh, Bam Adebayo, like you mentioned, we love playing bigs against the Hornets, but they priced him up a good bit. 9K, I was just like, whew, this salary is tough. They are not making it easy tonight to play him. Uh, for me, like you mentioned too, he's been in solid form. He's had multiple 50 plus fantasy point performances this season. He hasn't scored below 50 fantasy points really in the last four games. And then he's given this golden opportunity to face this really bad Charlotte defense tonight. So it's really hard to find a reason to not play him, even given his price tag, because of the great form he's been in. My strategy right now is just to kind of see how the rest of the slate plays out. There's one really pricey center who's listed as questionable on this slate that we'll get to, which might give us some extreme value at that position. Uh, so I just kind of want to see how things play out. But where I stand right now is I want to make sure I'm at least around field weight on Bam. Uh, he's kind of on my radar as a potential leverage play, but again, I don't know if I'll have to get there on this slate. The rest of these guys, I'm not interested. It wouldn't shock me if we see like uh, a Jimmy Butler or Duncan Robinson have a strong performance tonight just because of the strong matchup, but I don't trust them enough to try and go super heavy here. It's one of those spots where if I get some natural exposure, I'm fine with it, but the only guy I'm potentially going to force exposure to is Bam. So nothing too crazy. The Hornet side of things gets a little interesting as well. I know we don't typically like to pick on the Miami Heat, but This is probably the last game before Miles Bridges returns. I know his suspension is over after this game, but he'll probably play later this week. And then Terry Rozier's still out. Are you interested in any of these guys here?
Not one bit. I was looking through the team and trying to find one reason to play anybody here and couldn't do it. So it's probably going to be a team I just kind of move on from and not even think twice about.
Hey, speak of the devil. Looks like we
Hayward
have a
now
few questionable tags from this team now.
And Brandon Miller. So funny, as soon as I say that, that news comes out. So
yeah, it's Brandon Miller and Gordon Hayward both listed as questionable. Does that change things for you at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's probably gonna be a situation where wait and see. First game on the slate, so we should have an update before the slate locks. So
Thank God. This
so
game
wait
is the
and
first
see
game on the
approach.
Yeah, I think for me, the guys that if Hayward or if Miller ends up being out, then that's a boost for Hayward and Washington in my mind. If Hayward's out, that's a really big boost for Brandon Miller. Outside of that, I want to see the starting lineup and how they play it there. So if we get no news and all these guys play, I'm with you. I'm not super excited about anyone here besides maybe taking a shot on LaMelo Ball just because he has upside, but I don't love the matchup. Anyone else you kind of want to touch on?
No.
Aaron, you're right. Hayward was pretty awful in that last game. So taking a break, I would understand. Pacers against the Sixers. So the Pacers tonight are looking pretty healthy. Are any of these guys standing out for you here?
Not really.
Yeah.
I feel like Halliburton is definitely worth mentioning. He looked great in this matchup last time out. I do like some of the other studs more than him tonight, so I probably won't be forcing any of him. But if you get to him, I wouldn't talk you out of it or anything. And Miles Turner is kind of frustrating. If Embiid happens to be out, I would like him a little more, but if Embiid is in, I probably wouldn't force him in or be excited about playing him.
Yeah. One of my biggest concerns with Turner is always foul trouble. So him going up against Embiid is not going to help that concern at all for me. So I'm not really going to try to force him at all. But exactly like you mentioned, if Joel Embiid is out, my interest in Miles Turner goes up a good bit. Of course, if Embiid's out, we're going to have other value center options potentially available. So not sure how crazy I'll want to go, but I definitely will try to make sure I increase my exposure to Turner if Embiid is out. Halliburton to me just kind of falls into the stud guys that it's fine if you get some exposure to. They're kind of like your GPP targets, but nothing stands out for him. Very similar to LaMelo Ball for me on this slate. Don't love the matchup. If I get a little bit, fine. I can live with it. But I'm not planning on playing any of these guys if everyone's healthy on the Sixers tonight, currently. Large slate, and I think there's some really nice mid-range plays on this slate that I want to kind of prioritize a good bit. You already touched on it. Joel Embiid is questionable. Anyone else on the Sixers kind of stand out for you today?
So definitely got to mention Maxey first. Like, this guy is just unbelievable right now. He dropped 50 real life points in this matchup last time out, and I mentioned in my notes last game, like, he's like turning into a stud before our eyes. So FanDuel got his pricing right. I think he's finally 10K over there, but for whatever reason, DraftKings still priced him at 8,900, which I'm not complaining about. So I'm probably gonna have a crap ton of Maxey tonight. We were talking about it before the show. I'm hoping Embiid does play because that should keep the ownership down on Maxey, which is what we want. So Maxey will for sure be a leverage play if he stays at 5% ownership. That's just criminally low. So he's outside of Embiid, he's definitely my favorite play on this team. Now, the one guy that's probably not going to be as exciting to play, but we have to mention is Robert Covington. Oubre is going to be out for a while, and then Batum is out as well. So Covington is the projected starter. So at 3,400, he's going to be hard not to play. So he's probably just going to be one of those guys where I just play a good amount of him and whatever happens. So I'm not excited about it, but he's going to be a nice line filler. So those will kind of be the main pieces I'm going for. Of course, if Embiid is out, then that makes other guys like Paul Reed more viable. And then even Tobias Harris, I'll have a lot of interest in him as well.
Yeah. Once again, I'm thinking about things very similarly to the way you are. Clay, the way that we think about chalk, the number changes depending on the slate size and depending what news is breaking, things of that sort. But just the way ownership's looking right now, Robert Covington being around 49%, usually anything above like 30% to me, I would consider super chalky on like a relatively small slate. On a slate that has 10 games, anyone that's really above 20% would kind of fall into the chalky category for me. Do you look at things the same way, Brandon?
Yep, I was going to say that's exactly how I see it as well.
Yeah, but Covington being at 50% is super chalk. That's just super chalk. And like you mentioned, you're not going to feel great about playing Covington tonight. We've seen him disappoint before in the past, but it seems like this team trusts him a good bit. He has been playing a decent amount of minutes, being relatively new to this team, and I feel like him seeing more minutes with Kelly O now being out seems solid at 3,400. So again, not a spot you feel great about, but especially if we don't get any more news on the slate, he's definitely in play for me. And like you mentioned, I'm planning on being over on Maxey, hoping Embiid plays. So that happens. If Embiid's out, Maxey at that point is probably a core play. I'm going to have Harris exposure. I'm going to have Paul Reed exposure. That's just the way I know I'm already going to play it. Other guys who see a boost, I'll figure it out once the news is official, but that's kind of where I'm at now. Anything else you think we should touch on here?
I think Melton is worth a mention too. He hasn't been the best, but with some of the guys out and then possibly Embiid out, I think he's viable as well.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on. Next up, we have the Hawks, who gave us the probably best news of the day so far and probably of the slate. Trae Young is going to be out, which really opens things up for this team. Who are you liking here for the Hawks?
Yeah, quite a few people. So the obvious is DeJounte Murray. Like, he should get the biggest boost out of anybody, and is like a core level play now without Trae. So I'll have a big chunk of him tonight, I'm sure. And then all these other like secondary pieces, I definitely want to make sure I have some shares on. Bogdan Bogdanovic is probably another one that stands out first. And then Sadiq Bey. Only thing I don't like about him is he's so like shooting dependent, but he still is super cheap, so I don't mind playing him. And then guys like Hunter and Jalen Johnson, I'll be fine getting to. And then center, like you said, it depends on how the news breaks out later, but Okongwu, he's been playing really well, so I wouldn't mind having some shares of him. And then Capella, don't mind him either. I probably like Okongwu a little more, but I'll be fine with getting some Capella as well. So pretty much this whole team really without Trae.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if I was to run the DS right now, DeJounte Murray would be a core play for me, and that wouldn't surprise me. And I'll be totally happy with it because that's what I want to have happen today. Murray being a core play, I want to be significantly over the field, but that will, of course, depend on ownership. Bogdan Bogdanovic sees a nice boost for me as well with Trae Young being out. Oddly enough, Sadiq Bey sees a 2.8% increase in usage when Trae Young is out, and he sees plus 9.2 DK fantasy points when Trae Young is out. And that's for exactly the reasons you mentioned. He will see a bit more usage. He'll see a few more shots here. He is pretty scoring dependent, so that's always the scary part. Not someone I want to go too crazy on, but I do want to make sure I have elevated exposure to him with Trae Young being out of this game. Outside of that, if I get some Jalen Johnson, some Hunter, I'm fine with it. They see increases in usage as well with Trae Young. Everyone does, but I'm not as excited about them. Clint Capella feels like a hard pass for me. Okongwu's fine. Outside of that, I think we're good to go. Anyone else you want to touch on?
Nope.
Yep. For the Pistons side of things, how are you treating them? I know Duran's out.
So Cade is kind of sticking out for me. I do like his price is dropping. So at 8K, I wouldn't mind getting to some of him. Azar, he's been very solid so far. So he's probably my second favorite option on the team. That's probably about the only two guys I'd be willing to play. Some of these other guys would be a little too hard for me to get to.
No interest in Bagley?
No, yeah, I'm done with Bagley. We definitely have some better options on this slate. So if he was cheaper, I wouldn't mind taking some shots. But yeah, at 5K, he's a pass for me. I don't even think he closed last game, so not sure what's going on with that.
Yep. Looks like we're getting some more news. Looks like Trey Jones is ruled out. That's fun. That might be the only thing. And Keldon Johnson ruled out. Hey, we're about to get to that Spurs game. I'm right there with you. Cade Cunningham, not going to lie, I liked him a little bit more when Trey was going to be out there because I think that just makes for a little bit of an easier defensive matchup. But I'm not overly concerned about the Hawks guards from a defensive perspective anyway. So I still feel like this is a good spot for Cade Cunningham. And like you mentioned with Thompson, he's kind of like my option number 2 here. I think both of them should be heavily involved from just multiple perspectives here. And they're priced decently too. So they just make a lot work on this slate. Like I said, I like the mid-range a lot on this slate. And so I plan on really being over in that like 7 to 9K range. I like a lot of the guys there. For the Magic, any of these guys standing out for you?
Not really. This is probably another team I won't have too much exposure to. I feel like I do have to mention Jalen Suggs because dude has just been playing really well, and I think Fultz is going to miss another one. So
yeah, Fultz is out, Carter's still out, Gary Harris is questionable.
Yep. So I think Suggs is a good GPP play, but not somebody I'm going to force in. And then kind of same deal with Paolo and Franz. Like I'm never excited about playing them, but I'm okay with them for like a low on GPP play. Just not super excited about it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Let's see. King said, "What's up? Is DFS Army an app or do I actually need to go to the website?" DFS Army is a website, so no app, unfortunately. If you want a discount though, 10% discount. Feel free to use promo code BDUBB. What's up, Soup? Unfriended Bagley for now. Yeah, he's just not a guy I'm super excited about, Mo, either. Mr. 5, you're right. Stewart has been that guy for you. He has been very consistent from at least like doing better than Bagley. Mr. 5 agrees that Suggs has been really good this year. Yeah, I agree with your take too, Brandon. No one's really standing out for me. I feel like Paolo's always worth mentioning, but he hasn't been very exciting. And I don't love the matchup against the Nets here. Same with Franz, Cole Anthony. I think the only guy I'm comfortable having exposure to here is Jalen Suggs. And if we have zero value, which I don't think we'll have an issue with, it's Anthony Black is fine getting some of him, but not excited about that. So it's really just Suggs for me too. Anyone else you want to touch on?
No, not really.
Sorry, Kings. It's BDUBB. So it's B-dub. Yep, good catch Dixon. Keldon is out, trying to soak in all. Yeah, no worries, man. No worries. Appreciate you sticking around with us. So yeah, we're not interested in the Magic, and there's quite a few reasons. Matchup isn't great. Literally the lowest total game on the slate. Not a lot standing out here for these guys. What about the Nets? Any interest in them for you?
Really, only one guy for me, and I was disappointed seeing his ownership. So it looks like the field kind of had the same thought process I did. So that one guy is Cameron Johnson. He played, I think, 35 minutes last game, and that's kind of what I was waiting for out of him is getting off that minutes limit and getting back to that normal time. So he's priced pretty cheap, and you keep saying it. Mid-range guys are looking good, and he's one of those guys that fits into that category. So I'll have a good chunk of him tonight. Really, nobody else is standing out for me on this team.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. And a big part of it is because Cam Thomas is not playing. And he has been a usage monster for them this season. And with him gone, someone else has to step up. And Cameron Johnson, he returned from being out for a while. That first game, he only played 25 minutes. Then in the last game against Washington, he played 34 minutes. And so seeing him see that massive boost in minutes gave me a little bit more trust and just the consistency he can have, and realizing that 5,400 is way too cheap for him. So he's chalky around 24% on a 10-game slate. It's a little wild. I didn't expect that, but hopefully it does balance out with some of the other news we have on this slate. But Cameron Johnson's one guy I do not want to forget about because this is a solid spot for him, and he can definitely have some upside here. I don't have interest in anyone else, though, kind of like you mentioned. Zola, you're right. Paolo definitely does see a nice boost with Fultz out. And Kings, you're right, too. Bagley just has not been that guy here recently. For the Spurs, this is the game everyone's going to be keeping an eye on. We have Victor against Chet. And we already got the news that Keldon Johnson's going to be out and Trey Jones is going to be out, which does open up things a good bit. Are any interest in the Spurs for you?
One guy I'm probably the most comfortable playing, especially with Keldon and Trey out now, is Devin Vassell. He's been pretty solid the last couple games, and another guy who fits into that mid-range price. So I'm sure once our DS gets updated, probably start getting a good amount of him. Wemby. So I typically have not been on the Wemby train, but I am a believer in him versus Chet. Like they've been going at it when they've played against each other, and I could see them going at it again tonight. So, especially with Keldon and Trey Jones out, well, more so Keldon, I'll be fine getting to some of him. I could see him kind of going off tonight. And then I think Zach Collins is worth mentioning as well. I think there'll be some better center spots still, but I'd be open to having some exposure to him now as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I got a little spoiled by Victor being 7,900, and I was like, yeah, he's too cheap. Like, he's going to be so great. And now that he's 8,600, I'm just like, bleh. I'm a lot less excited about it. But I agree with you. I think, especially with Keldon Johnson and Trey Jones being out, it makes me more interested in playing Victor than I was originally when the slate kicked off. But the guys that I want to make sure, I'll be careful with that. But the guys that I do like a good bit from this team are Vassell and Sohan. Let me double check usage rates here, but those are two guys that I can see benefiting a good bit with Keldon Johnson and Trey Jones being out. And then just from like a usage standpoint, Zach Collins was a good call. He sees the highest increase in usage actually with Keldon Johnson and Trey Jones being out. And then after him, number 2 is Vassell. So Zach Collins is another guy who I think is in a good spot to benefit with the injury news we have currently. Anyone else you think worth mentioning? Do you have any interest in like Malachi Branham?
Um, I think he's a viable value play now for sure. He's just never a guy I'm really excited to get to.
Yeah.
But whatever the DS spits out, as long as it's nothing like crazy, I'll be fine with having some exposure to him.
Yeah, one concern I do have is this game not staying close. We're already at a 10.5 spread. So I like the Spurs and I do want some exposure, but this does feel like a spot I don't want to go too crazy on. Are you feeling similarly
Oh
or
yeah, yep,
it's
for sure.
yeah, and I feel the same way about the other side of this game too. I like SGA a lot. I like Chet a lot in this spot, but I'm nervous because of that wide spread. What are you doing with the Thunder here?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think SGA is a great low on GPP play. His upside is really good in this matchup, so I could see this being one of his 60-point games.
Yeah,
Um, Talked about Chet versus Wemby, so I definitely want to make sure I have some exposure to Chet as well. I love the 2% ownership, so I definitely don't mind getting some leverage there. And then Jalen Williams, I think he's another one of those mid-range price guys.
hmm
Um, I'm not as excited to play him, but he's another guy I wouldn't talk you out of playing if you landed on him. So it's
yeah,
mainly those three guys for me.
yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think Chet stands out for me. I like him a little bit more than Victor today, mostly because he's cheaper. So expectations can be a little bit lower, and knowing the stakes are a little high for him, and the narrative, Chet does care about stats a little bit. Uh, and outside of just that, the Spurs, they're eighth in pace and they have the 24th worst rebounding rate in the league. And so when you just look at those statistics, it looks like it puts Chet and even Jalen Williams in a pretty solid spot to have a strong performance today, even if this game does end up blowing out. So I like Jalen Williams and Chet here as well, but SGA is the guy that I want to make sure I'm at least around field weight exposure on. Dixon. Yeah, that would be crazy. I would love it though. I would love it. Mo said, I'm still going to unfriend Victor. Hey, I'm okay with it. I am not tied to him anymore. I had my time, my moment, but it's over. It's over. um, Another team that's been pretty solid this season, surprisingly, are the Mavs. Are any of these guys standing out for you against the Pelicans?
Yeah, there's a few guys. So Luca, of course, the obvious. I'm okay with getting to him tonight. I will note that out of the elite studs, which I group him, Embiid, and Joker together, I would rather pay up to Embiid and Joker over him. But he's just, like I've said before, if you get to him, I'm not going to talk you out of it because I think he's viable in this matchup. Next guy, Kyrie Irving.
He's your guy.
Yeah, he was a leverage play for me in this matchup last time, and he absolutely smashed with barely any ownership, and his price is still the same. Not happy that his ownership is in double digits now, which I was expecting, but I'll be going right back to him. He's just too cheap for the upside he has, even with Luca playing. So I like him. And then one guy I'm never really excited about playing, but he's actually been pretty solid is Hardaway Jr. He's another one of those guys in that mid-range price that I wouldn't mind having some shares of.
Yeah. Any interest in Derek Jones Jr.?
Not really, no. um,
You're like, oh no.
yeah, if
No,
he
no,
was
I get it.
if he was a bit cheaper, I would, but I don't think I could get to him tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he showed his true colors in the last game against the Pelicans. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that thought process. I think really the only guy I see myself maybe having exposure to is Doncic. I think you touched on some good points about how I prefer Jokic and Embiid over him. So I'm not making him a priority by any means, but if I get some naturally through the domination station, I'm fine with it. Uh, Irving's fine, but I prefer Maxey 10 times over, so I'm not going to force it. There's not really anyone else I love from this team. Don't love the matchup and or game, but I do understand the harder way call too. For the Pelicans, this is a team that's been going through it here recently. They've been in the news as well. Zion looks depressed. Are any of these guys standing out for you?
This team is frustrating to play. I don't see myself. I don't see myself forcing in any of these guys like Zion and Ingram. I just haven't really seen that upside so far. I seen a clip earlier this morning. It was a Zion interview, and he was talking about buying into the system and taking the back seat and whatnot. So I'm just kind of off of Zion at the moment. And then Ingram, I want to like him, but again, I just haven't seen that upside. So this team as a whole, I'm not really on.
Yeah, they dropped the ball last game in this spot, and they're going to be pretty low owned. And so my thought process is the Mavs aren't a great defense. Apparently, the Pelicans can't play offense though, but this is still a decent spot for them. As you all know, the Mavs do play at a pretty slow pace, so they're not a team that I'm typically excited to force exposure to. But this game is still tied for the highest total on the slate, and so for me, it's just a process thing. I'm always going to play guys in this kind of matchup. So Joe Val, he didn't play a ton of minutes last game. Hopefully they get that on track and he's in a solid spot now where he will. And so I'm going to be over the field on Joe Val. He's possibly going to be a leverage play for me on this slate. When it comes to Brandon Ingram and Zion, they frustrate the hell out of me. I'm going to be honest. Like you mentioned, they just have not been consistent. And with CJ out, they both should have seen a boost in production. Zion did in that first game, but he's really fallen off since. With that being said, though, I'm going to have Zion and Brandon Ingram exposure. The only question is how much. Will it be field weight or above? But I will be at least around field weight on them. Anyone else you want to touch on here?
Nah, that's about it for me. I'm definitely done with the Jordan Hawkins experiment. So
I don't talk about him anymore. If he beats me, he beats me. I do not care.
Yeah.
Dixon, I hear you. I hear you. Hopefully Zion can get it focused. Yep. We touched on it, Josh. Appreciate the call outs on that. Portland Trailblazers against the Jazz. Who do you like here?
So I'm definitely willing to go back to Grant. He had a off game last time out, but I mean, this dude is playing like 40 plus minutes, so it's hard not to go right back, especially in this matchup. And Kessler is still out as well, so really good spot for him. Same goes for Ayton. He's kind of been disappointing lately, but still a nice price tag on him. So solid spot for him. Sharp and Mays are worth mentioning. It's going to be harder for me to get there just because of how priced up they are, but they should play a ton of minutes as well. So I think they could be viable, but it'll definitely be hard to pay those the price tags on them.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where I went kind of back and forth on how much of these guys I wanted. But as of right now, I like the Portland Trailblazers. Malcolm Brogdon's out. All these guys are seeing crazy minutes. Shaedon Sharp right now, we have him projected to see 41 minutes at 7,900, which is insane. And so I'm just going to play these guys. It just makes sense from a minute standpoint. Shaedon Sharp, Grant, Ayton, Mays, all the guys you touched on, I'm going to play and have exposure to tonight. It's just kind of that simple for me at this point. What about the Jazz side of things? I'm a little bit less excited about that. Any of these guys stand out for you?
So Clarkson, another mid-range guy I wouldn't mind getting to. He's a little streaky, so I do get a little worried about having too much of him. Colin Sexton, I think he's a viable cheapie tonight. Only concern with him is he's been seeing slightly under 20 minutes, so I do worry about that. But for the most part, he's been an okay option. Keontae has been pretty solid too. He did get a pretty nice price boost, so that does concern me a bit. But I'm still hoping he gets a little more aggressive as far as shooting the ball because we haven't really seen that. But he's been racking up assists, so I wouldn't mind having some shares on him. And then John Collins, we've been talking about him quite a bit this season, and another guy I wouldn't mind getting some shares of. That's probably about it for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with your thought process. I think these guys are fine tonight. Like, I think Lauri Markkanen's a decent GPP play. Clarkson's your streaky shooter. I 21% feels a little hefty to me on a slate this size for a streaky shooter like you touched on. So I'm comfortable having exposure, but I'm not going to force him in one way or the other unless something really stands out as I dig deeper throughout the day. John Collins, I think, is interesting. I like him as a potential leverage play with Kessler still out. Yeah, little get down. I say a lot. I'm sorry. Hopefully you can get over it. If not, sorry. Keontae George, I like having exposure to. And then outside of that, none of these guys are my favorite. I don't really like getting exposure to any of them. What do you think about Kelly O?
He's probably not going to be a priority for me, especially since he's center only. So probably not going to get to him really.
Yeah, just interesting team, but they're not standing out enough for me to go too crazy here. Let's see. For the Clippers, this team hasn't been great. They've been, ever since James Harden has been here, no one's really stood out too much. I'm tempted to start taking shots, though, on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and assume things start to turn around for them, especially in a game that has a relatively close spread at 4.5. Am I crazy for that, or what do you think?
So there was going to be one guy that I was willing to take a shot on, and that was Kawhi. The rest of the team is just kind of like move on from and not even think about.
Yeah. I think Kawhi is interesting. I'm interested in taking a shot on Paul George. I'm going to take a shot on one of them. I think your argument's fair. Kawhi's cheaper, and he's still super low owned. So I like the shot there. I'll probably end up having a 5% min on both, though, to be honest. That's probably where I'll end up. I'm assuming no interest in James Harden?
No.
Yeah.
Definitely
Dixon, you're right. He went from the beard to the problem. Very problematic. I won't go on a rant. We don't have time for it, but I had one.
If y'all haven't seen it, watch that reporter or announcer just go in on Harden for like 2-3 minutes. Like, that was just gold, pure gold.
Legendary. Let's see. For the Nuggets, I know you already touched on having some interest in Jokic. Interest in him or anyone else?
Yeah. I know that price tag. I know that price tag looks pretty hefty, but I mean, it's well deserved. And what he's been doing, like, I don't care about it. Like, I'm gonna have some exposure to him. He's just way too good. So he's probably my favorite pay up option tonight. The other two guys I'll probably have a good chunk of is Michael Porter Jr. and Aaron Gordon. They fit into that mid-range tier as well. So yeah, those would be my three guys I'm focusing on this team.
That MPJ exposure at 30%, that's wild. I have to imagine that balances out throughout the day. I hope so, at least, because that's going to be hard to get over. But at 6,700, I guess it's a little bit more doable. MPJ has been in really good form, especially if it's three-point shooting. And the Clippers have been really bad defensively ever since the problem joined the team. I'm interested in Aaron Gordon as a potential pivot off of him. He has decent upside, but of course hasn't been in as great form as MPJ from a DFS standpoint. And then Jokic is the pay up, the most expensive, and also probably the best pay up on the slate, in my opinion. So I agree with you. 2 more games to go. We have the Timberwolves against the Golden State Warriors. Timberwolves have been solid this season. Are any of them standing out for you?
Not too much. I definitely never mind having some shares of Conley. He's just another guy who is a nice line filler. Never excited about playing him, but he makes things work. The rest of this team, Edwards is always viable with the way he's been playing. I do like other studs on this slate more than him, but another guy I wouldn't talk you off of if you wanted to take a low on GPP shot on him. And then Go Bear and Cat are frustrating at times, but against Golden State, who you can attack down low, I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them smashed here. But we talked about it earlier. I think there's just better center plays than them, so I probably won't be getting to them. If I do, it's like a super small percentage.
Yeah, it's weird. Yesterday, looking at this slate, I thought I was going to be over on the Timberwolves just because it made sense, like matchup wise for me. But just some of the other spots on this slate that we already talked about are a bit more exciting for me. So I've deprioritized a lot of these guys like Edwards, Cat, and Gobert. Conley's still in the mix, but like you mentioned, I'm never excited to play a 12% or 13% usage guy, but he does make a lot work. So I'll get probably around field weight, but he won't be a core player or anything like that. Let's see. Anthony Edwards is still someone I want to look a little bit closer at for a leverage play, and then Gobert is someone that it wouldn't shock me if I end up being over the field on him either. But as of right now, I don't want to force the issue by any means. Anyone on the Golden State Warriors side standing out for you?
Not really. I know we usually both like taking low on shots on Curry, but I'm just not a fan of this matchup. So this is going to be another team where I just kind of move on from and not even think about.
Yeah, and Curry's questionable tonight, so that's another stud that could make things more interesting for this slate. Chris Paul is only 6,100. We would assume, and he would move into the starting lineup if Curry's out. That makes some of these other guys on this team more interesting to me. Curry obviously has a massive usage rate, but if he sits, and Chris Paul is known for being able to distribute the ball well. I would be interested in Klay Thompson and maybe, in Andrew Wiggins. They both haven't been great this season because Curry's been doing so well, but do you think those plays could make sense if Curry ends up being ruled out?
Yeah, for sure. They'll definitely get a boost if that does happen. It will still be hard to stomach because, like you said, they both have just been like, I don't know, especially Wiggins.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard to stomach playing
Don't
them.
look at the game log if you're playing
Yeah,
Wiggins. Just
yeah,
pretend like he's a new player with Chris Paul starting. Yeah, that's the way only way I could feel good about it. And really, I probably only have like 5-10% Wiggins because no one else is gonna play him for good reason because he's been so bad. What about this Memphis Grizzlies team against the Lakers tonight?
yeah. This is another team where I was trying to find a reason to play and I couldn't do it, so I'm not really excited about anyone here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I tried to find a reason to play Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr., and I'm going to continue to try and do that throughout until we get to lock, but I couldn't find a reason to play him. Yep, Jimmy, Trae Young is out. For the Lakers, I know LeBron James is questionable. That's another stud that has an impact. What are you doing with these guys?
Really, the only one I'm considering playing is Anthony Davis. I'm just not sure if I want to force it because we keep talking about the center spot and some other spots that we really like. So, not sure if I want to force the issue, but his low ownership is kind of jumping out at me. So, I probably won't mind taking some shots on him. If LeBron plays, probably won't be getting to anybody else, honestly. If he ends up being out, I think that makes Cam Reddish and Rui a little more viable, but still won't be too excited about playing them.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, Reed. I think if we don't get the LeBron James news, there's a world I might have Anthony Davis as a leverage play just to try to be over the field on him in that situation, but not something I want to go crazy with. And then if LeBron James is healthy, I don't have interest in any of the Lakers tonight. So that's the slate in a nutshell. Like I said, some of the early games and some of the mid-range games, I think it's going to be an interesting slate. I think we have some strong leans that a lot of the field hopefully won't be too high on. But anything else you want to say, Brandon, before we go our separate ways for a little bit?
No, I don't think so.
Awesome. And you're right, Jimmy. It's DeJounte Murray time. Let's make it happen. All right. We'll see you all later on the pre-lock show. Peace out, guys.